Hi guys, and welcome to my RTN report video. Took me a while to get this one out. The RTN happened about 3 weeks ago, but I was ill and on holiday, so something really bad and something really good happened, and that stopped me from doing this. At the RTN, I finished second, which meant I was the last person to lose on the day, but I'm quite new to the game, so I just wanted to qualify for Nats, so I'm happy with the end result. For this deck list, I will only go through the things that are considered non-standard. If anyone watching this is someone that usually watches my Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, I cannot stress how highly I would recommend checking out Flesh and Blood. There's lots of channels on YouTube to help get started, but if you have any questions, just let me know and I can help you out as well. Two things before we begin. Firstly, never use single-sleeved Rainbow Foil cards in your main deck. I attended 2 RTNs this season. The first one I made top 8, and we do a deck check in top 8, and I get called up for my blue Emerald Centipies being warped. They were warped, I just didn't notice it, honestly. And needless to say, I got an IP2 penalty, which is fair enough, and I lost my top 8 match against Lexi. So I've now taken out all Rainbow Falls from my deck. Secondly, I'm fairly new to this game. Those 2 tournaments were the first official Flesh and Blood tournaments that I attended. And why am I telling you this? It's because I still can't pitch stack or anything like that, which means that if you're an aspiring Dromai player, you don't have to be the best Dromai player to do well at the entry levels of competitive play, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, I know what cards to save for later in certain matchups. I know what cards to put together, but I can't remember how many turns it's been. I can't remember what exactly is coming up. So I'm okay at it, not great. Now for the list, I will only go over things that are a bit unusual or unconventional in Dromai. There are much better players who have done interviews on YouTube that can explain to you why Dromai plays things like Flamescale Furnace, for example, or just Storm of Sandakai. So I'll leave that to them. If you're interested, go watch that. I'll just go over things that are considered kind of non-standard. So to start off with the equipment, there's nothing too special here. I went with Arcanite Skullcap instead of the Crown of Providence because I don't own Crown of Providence, and I got a good deal on the Skullcap, so I was like, cool. It's also good into Lexi because it can cover 2 breakpoints, which did prove very efficient. And when you're playing with Dromai, you sometimes trade life quite early on to build up a board, so you do often get the full value of the Skullcap. The Seeker's equipment is quite new. It came out on Outsiders. Seeker's Mitts is a new tech that a lot of Dromai players played at Pro Tour Baltimore and places like that. So I wanted to test it out instead of the Silken form. I was initially running the Mage Master boots as well, but I found that in a lot of matchups with like Lexi, Azalea, I just was never using them because I was running 2 tomes as well, but I could never pull off a good turn with it anyway. So I played the Mage Master at the first RTN, and then between then, after testing online, I swapped to double Seekers just to see what it was like, and it actually worked out really, really well. They're really good at covering breakpoints. So like, for example, against Katsu, one of the Seekers is just there for Ash generation, and then the second is just there and it's just staring at their breaking scales and it's saying, yeah, go ahead, I'll just cover it whenever you use it. So basically it gets rid of their equipment in that sense. And then also just helps cover more breakpoints. As well, it helps you dodge against Guardian. If they go CNC pummel, you fully block it out and maybe play like a Sigil or something, and they've pummeled. If you just get rid of the last card with your Seekers, then they're just not getting a lot of value from that CNC and from that pummel as well. So it's quite nice for that. Going forward, I definitely keep the double Seekers. It's working really well at the minute. Just being able to have on-demand Ash when you need it gets you out of a lot of tight spots. I'm just going to quickly scroll through the main deck before talking about the cards that are maybe a bit different. So yeah, we've got the main deck here. It is fairly standard, to be honest. Nothing too special. And then we've got side deck at the bottom here as well, or sideboard. The only card in the main deck that we'll talk about in great detail is the Pursuit of Knowledge. This is in here over the blue Sweeping Blow. Playing blue Sweeping Blow has to be one of the most pitiful things in this game. It just felt very underwhelming, and with the double Seekers equipment, the extra Ash wasn't actually needed. And plus, if you're pitching 2 with Pursuit of Knowledge as well, you are still making Ash. If you really, really need it, you can make 2. But if you don't need the Ash, then you can maybe play out a Dragon, pitch with Flamescale, then just play out your Pursuit of Knowledge. It just forces so many good blocks. It was just really good throughout both tournaments, especially the last one there. People always want to block it out because they don't want to give you a 5-card hand and potentially an arsenal as well. So it's just a really good tempo card, and as I said, generates plenty of Ash. Admittedly, the block 2 was on a few occasions clunky, but I've got a rule for this card. So when I play out Pursuit of Knowledge, I say to myself, wow, thank God that wasn't Blue Sweeping Blow, because that would do nothing here. And whenever I have to block with it, I'm like, oh, I wish this was Sweeping Blow because it's got the extra 1 block. And I can tell you that the former comes up way, way more than the latter. So glad I ran it. Maybe I'll change it up in future though if something better comes along, or if blocking becomes that much better. But because I'm only running 6 2 blocks in the whole deck, it should be fine. So sideboard had a few different things in there than maybe some other lists. I played 2 Dust from the Red Desert, and this card was phenomenal. It's probably the only reason I made it past my top 8, and even in Swiss it was really, really good. So top 8 was against Reinar, and both Dusts were used, and it won me the game. If you pair Red Dust with a Vinserakai on top and a Miragai Chromai, then you're either getting a ton of damage through or emptying your opponent's hand. It's basically like a better play than Miragai Passing Mirage, because you can still play after playing out your hand, whereas with the Passing Mirage one you can't. So it just really adds so much threat to your board that if your opponent is playing a Pauper deck, they really struggle to deal with it. The Time Snap Potion is in here instead of the Mage Master Boots. I wasn't sure if I would still play the Mage Master Boots in the side as a tech for the Guardian matchups, but I figured that Time Snap has a few more applications than Mage Master Boots, because Time Snap can be played on a turn that isn't just for Ghostly Touch if you need it, whereas Mage Master Boots in those matchups is purely for the Ghostly Touch. So I went with the Time Snap instead, and it did work really well. Again, the matches that I needed it and that I won, it was really good. Even the ones that I lost because of myself, not because of this. This did its job, and I'll explain that at the end. Playing the Time Snap also meant that I could go into the Guardian matchups with still 1 bit of Seeker's equipment on my feet, which would mean that, again, I can cover some pummels or some on-hits a bit more effectively. I can empty my hand when they go for a pummel as well. But I can also unbrick my first opening hand if it's all dragons and I'm going first, which did happen round 5, so I was glad I played it. And admittedly, even though the Mage Master Boots can do the same thing, if I use up my Mage Master Boots, then I don't have it for the Ghostly Touch. So that was the thinking there. The Silent Stilettos are in here because my arm piece and my foot equipment are the exact same, basically. Normally, people run the Mage Master Boots and they can't forego those for the Silent Stilettos, so they'll play the Null Rune Gloves instead. But because it didn't really matter which one I played, I chose to go with Silent Stilettos because it has the added effect of, if something gets popped by Phantasm, then I can pay 3 to gain an action point, which is relevant in matchups such as Viserai, which is my final and which I lost in. Unfortunately, I never saw the blue that I needed when it did happen, so doesn't really matter. And 2 Remembrance as well is just something I thought I could get away with. A lot of lists were playing 3, and some are just playing 1. I wanted a lot of Remembrance for Guardian, for Brute, and in case I came up against a mirror match, but I thought I could get away with 2. I'll quickly give a recap of the tournament as well, just to give an idea of the playstyle and kind of what came in handy, what didn't. So the MVP of the day was easily Burn Them All. I think I did close to 20 damage with this card in some of my games. In the top 8, I definitely did about 15 to 20 damage, and top 4 as well, about 15 to 20 damage. It's just so good at slowly chipping away and seeing out games, and it blocks 3. It's an insane card. So matchups here, round 1 was against Kano. I hate playing against Kano because either they have what they need to kill you or they don't. Fortunately, on this occasion, they just didn't, and I was able to kill him before he could kill me. It was close though. He was basically opting off the top of his deck when I was on like 8 health, and if he'd hit something bigger than what he hit, then there's a good chance I'd have died. I thought that day was going to be my day when I got paired with the Kano, to be fair, because there was 2 other Dromais in the room, and so I was the third, and they both got paired up against Rune Blades, and I got paired up against Kano, so I was like, maybe this is going to be my day. Round 2 and 3 were Azalea, and both were insanely close. I won both, but I felt like I'd somehow wriggled away from certain death when I didn't deserve to. The first Azalea was on the bow that stops defense reactions, and I was playing 6 defense reactions. So blocking out was really difficult. And against the other Azalea, I made a really greedy play, or I basically chose to hold onto a hand greedily and took a lot of damage on a turn that just didn't pay it off. And I was just on a really bad spot for the rest of the game, but I was just slowly able to kind of see out most of their threats and then kill them. But both games were like, I ended them on 1 health, so it was very close. Round 4 was against Reiner, and I got absolutely smashed. Wasn't even close. I think he ended the game on 20 life. It was honestly, it was pitiful. It was terrible. But at that point, I knew I'd qualified because it was 5 rounds of Swiss, so I wasn't too upset. But yeah, it was horrible. And then round 5 was against Bravo. I did everything right until the end. I had my ghostly touch nice and big. I had my time snap potion on field. I had in deck a Pass Mirage, a blue Ember Moss Centipie, a Chromite, and an Asvali, but crucially only one Ash. Now, I needed the blue Ember Moss Centipie to pay for the ghostly touch, and the time snap would bring out the Pass Mirage. But for some reason, my brain decided to go on vacation, and my backup brain in one turn just messed up my entire game because it went, you know what would be really cool? If I could swing with both the Chromite and the Asvali, and then hit with ghostly touch just to make sure it's a bit bigger. And then I just decided to attack with the Ember Moss Centipie that I needed to pay for my ghostly touch. And as soon as I did it, I was like, oh god, that was awful. And it was awful because I lost shortly after that because I had to swing basically with a naked ghostly touch. It was big, but he had a popper, so I lost. And yeah, needless to say, the game ended very quickly. But I'd already locked myself in for top 5 because I'd won my first 3 because of the way tiebreakers work. So I got away with my 2 worst rounds basically. So yeah, in between Swiss and Top Cut, I was given a chance to get some food and have a much needed break basically. During my break, I go grab some shawarma, refuel myself, reflect on my loss to the Reinar, and I'm like, how do I beat Reinar? How do I beat Reinar? Because there's 2 Reinars in Top Cut. And it turns out it doesn't matter if I'd won or lost my first round because of the way the tiebreakers were working. If I'd won, I'd play Reinar. If I'd lost, I'd play Reinar. So I had to find a solution for Reinar. And yeah, obviously I get paired with Reinar, which is a double whammy as well though, because he's a friend from locals and we're both needed top 8 to make nats because we didn't have the XP. So in this top 8 match, I just decided to take the game a lot slower, block out a lot more, just slowly develop a board. And over the course of the game, he rolls a 1, and then he has to break his Gambler's Gloves because I think it's on quite a good turn. And after that, he's basically rolling Scab Skins kind of with no protection. And if I can get 2 dragons on board, they're not getting cleared unless they roll something good. And a few 1s were rolled over the course of the game, so I was just able to build up and build up. I got my red dusts out, so I was able to summon out Vincerakai, Miragai. I had a huge board by the end of the game. And yeah, I was just able to kind of overwhelm. But yeah, very happy that I managed to somehow completely change my fortunes with a bit of reflection and shawarma in between Swiss and top 8. Top 4 was against Fatigue Azuri. I sided basically everything in, and I also added in the Ghostly Touch. The Ghostly Touch didn't come up in the end, but I did get up to like 12, so if I'd maybe been a bit more unlucky, then the Ghostly Touch might have come up. We both had at least two copies of Remembrance, and basically he ran out of poppers before I ran out of dragons, so I was just able to see that one out. It was a long game though. It was a long game. And then the final was against Viserai. Viserai is a terrible matchup, and I've also just not played against it that much. So I'm not too familiar with their play patterns, what their turns need to be. It was actually in the end quite a close game. He did whiff on 2 Sonata Arcanics, which is very helpful. It still wasn't enough though. I had a Chromai and a Kyloria turn, but he had the double poppers for them, so that was quite sad. It's just a really rough matchup. If I'd maybe had one more turn, it would have changed things because I finally got up quite a decent board with Miragais, a few big threats. The last turn as well, if I'd seen a blue in hand, I'd have had at least one more turn, which would have been nice, but I don't run a lot of blues, so I can't really complain about that. So yeah, just sad it wasn't Briar I lost to, because that would have been a nice 2 Living Legend points, which would have got her to 1,000. Just like to add that every dragon in here was really, really good. Playing 3 Uvia, 1 in the main, 2 in the side, was really good into like the fatigue matchups, the Guardians, because you just pump out so many Ashwings, and you can, even when you don't have like Chromai or Miragai out or Passing Mirage, you can just trade really nicely with the Ashwings. Super good value. So yeah, that rounds up the deck profile and the RTN report. Hopefully you have gleaned something useful from this video. I've tried to keep this as short and concise as possible and not try to waffle too much, but also wanted to give some sort of potentially helpful information in here. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and have a good day.